Hello, friends, and welcome to Almapura Awakenings. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we are going to explore another universal pattern of energy, another archetype that hides in plain sight, and it touches all of us at some point in our life. And that archetype is the archetype of envy. Before we begin, I really want to say this very clearly that envy is not evil and envy is not shameful. It's a signal or a mirror reflecting what the soul believes is missing. So, in Almapura, we don't deny the human experience. We try to honor it. And we meet each of these archetypes with compassion, curiosity, and understanding. And that's what we're going to do today with the archetype of envy. So, what is an archetype? Well, an archetype is like a universal pattern of energy that repeats itself across all of humanity. It's like an emotional imprint that's carried by the collective. We all know and can recognize archetypes. So, we know what sadness feels like, and we know what it looks like when it is with somebody. We know what joy looks like, and we also understand what lacking feels like or what longing feels like. And that's very connected to the archetype of envy. So these archetypal energies are ancient blueprints and they live within the human psyche. And every one of them is a pattern. And for the archetype of envy, this is a pattern of comparison or the feeling of being pressed down or less than. It's a pattern of watching somebody else's blessings and wondering if there's enough left over for you. And so envy does a number on us. It does a real number on us because when we are kind of dominated by the archetype of envy, we tend to dumb ourselves down. And so envy causes us to feel less than because we have to dumb down all of our life experiences when we're looking at somebody else's blessing. An archetype is also a pattern of emotion that is super predictable. And it's a predictable energetic state that you know when it's coming and you know when it's kind of taking over inside of you. It's like a survival response to the human ego. So these psychological imprints are like symbols that the psyche uses to express longing or a perceived lack of something. Archetypes feel larger than the person because they override gratitude and perspective, especially for the archetype of envy. Um, Envy also clouds the self worth and it activates the feelings of scarcity. It repeats the same emotional tone across all people. It doesn't waver. It's a dumbing down, it's a self-comparison, it's wondering if there's enough for you, wondering if you are enough. And these feelings are ancient, they're collective, and they're really powerful. So a lot of ancient people or times before described envy as a spirit of jealousy. I'm sure you've heard of the green-eyed monster, but from the perspective of Alma Pearl, we see it really for what it is. And it's a vibration of separation. And it's a vibration of separation between our body and our soul. Archetypes also, they're not good or bad. They're simply energy, their instinct, their emotion, their reflection, and their opportunity. And you might think, like, opportunity, they can only really become harmful when they silence your gratitude. And again, this is for the archetype of envy, because it tends to silence your gratitude, it limits your compassion, it distorts your perception, it takes every ounce of joy you have about the accomplishments and the successes that you have in your life, and it disconnects you from your own inner truth, which is your divine truth. So it separates you from yourself and from everything that you've worked so hard to do here on this earth. So, what is envy really? If we had to define it all the way to its core, what is it? Well, energetically, envy lives in the throat and the solar plexus, and it kind of feels like a constriction, almost like if you've ever thought of that foam that you just spray the foam and then it fills all the gaps. That's kind of what envy does. It fills up, it collects itself in our throat. It might block our ability to celebrate other people. And it really arises when a person feels unseen, or when a person feels unappreciated, when a person feels left behind, or disconnected from gratitude. That is the biggest thing that I find that envy causes, is a lack of gratitude. It makes us forget to be grateful for what we have in our life and to see the beauty in what we have in our life. And financially or emotionally strained, that also is like a byproduct of envy, because a lot of times we look at what other people have. Sometimes that's, you know, finances, and sometimes we look at people and we think, oh my gosh, they're so happy. So emotionally, financially, situationally, envy really presses us down and makes us forget who we are. A lot of this also comes from societal pressure, because society tells us that we're not enough. Every time we get on social media, every time, we get on any TikToks or anything, we're wondering like, why isn't that for me? So envy likes to tell us that we are falling behind, that we're not enough, and that other people are more blessed than us, and that other people are more deserving than us. But the deeper truth of envy is that envy is not about them at all. It's about you. It's about what you believe is missing within yourself. Envy is really born from one illusion, and that's the illusion that you and another person are separate. So envy says that their blessing excludes me, their success reduces my chances. God gave them more than God gave me. But spiritually, this is very untrue, because something that your soul knows is that there is no lack in God's design at all. Someone else's miracle doesn't remove your miracle. And every blessing you witness is proof of what is available or what is possible to you. Your timeline is personal, it's perfect, and it's divinely timed. And God knows what that is. But when we see something that we like in another person's life, it's really our soul telling us, like, hey, do you know that that's available? Would you like that? Would you like to do that? Would you like to have that? It's kind of like waking us up to something that we can strive for, or wish for, or work for. Envy arises when the ego forgets that we all come from the same source. We all come from the same field of abundance. We all come from the same God. And when you remember that we're one, the wound kind of starts to disappear, And I had this experience one time, just to kind of give you an idea of what this part really talks about. Is after my mom passed away, even though I talked to people in heaven, I thought that it wouldn't be fair if I could talk to my mom. So I didn't talk to my mom. And I tried, but I didn't feel like I was getting information. It's just probably my mind talking to me. And the reason that I thought that it wouldn't be fair, I couldn't, because I know that God is a good God. And God is my father, and I am a mother, and I love both of my children unconditionally. And I would never like offer one child like this most beautiful gift and not offer my other child the same gift, And I think that that is super important to recognize, is that when we unconditionally love people, we're not going to pick and choose over who deserves what, because they all deserve. And that's what God showed me in this connection with my mom. A couple years had passed, and I was in a reading with a lady, and the information coming, a woman came from heaven and she started to talk to me and she started to share information with me, supposedly for the woman sitting in front of me. But the woman sitting in front of me that came for the reading kept saying, no, no, that doesn't sound like my mom. And then I heard this laughter, and the laughter sounded a lot like my mom. And I even said to my client, oh, the woman that's here for you is laughing and she sounds just like my mom. And then the information that I had just shared with my client started clicking in my brain, and all of the information was about me, my mom, my dad, my siblings, and all of the information was about my family and my life. And I recognized then that it was my mom who had actually snuck into the session and started to talk to me. And So like my own spirit gave me a reading and connected me to my human self, to my mom. You guys, it blew my mind, but it blew my mind more in the sense that of course, I couldn't believe I was talking to my mom. And of course, I was crying and I was so excited that she was talking to me and it touched me so deeply. But what blew my mind is that if I could talk to my mom in heaven, then the lady sitting in front of me could also talk to her mom in heaven, because God doesn't pick and choose. It's available to all of us. And so that's the day that I started to try to figure out, how does this work? How can I teach people how to connect with their own soul and how to connect with their family and friends in heaven? And that has turned out to be successful. So I have met people that have learned how to talk to their family and friends in heaven. And that's what this section talks about, is like, it's available to all of us, every gift, every blessing. And that's really the important key here to all of this, and to all of this about envy. That's the most important thing. So, yeah. So envy looks the same on everyone. It's kind of like rage. Envy has its universal appearance. And you often see it like when you talk about somebody's successes and you're telling somebody and their eyes kind of go dim, and they don't they don't respond in a like a joyful way. Their voice like falters or it goes down in tone, especially if you ask if they want to celebrate this person that you're talking about. Sometimes their posture shrinks down because that's that feeling of being pressed down. And sometimes you'll even notice that physically a person's posture will change when you're telling them about somebody else's successes. So across every human culture, it pretty much looks the same, because it's born from the same wound, and that is that wound or that illusion of separation. So we do also have a shadow buddy connected to the archetype of envy, and that shadow buddy is desire, which is absolutely our hidden teacher here. So when envy can't express itself in a truthful way, it kind of twists it up, and it twists it into resentment, or it twists it into self-pity. But when we meet it with compassion, it reveals something a little deeper, and it reveals desire. And that's the soul's sacred longing to grow or to transcend, to express. And so envy says, oh my God, I want what they have. And desire says, I want to feel what they feel. So that is the difference. Because envy, again, envy says, I want what they have. But the truth of that is desire, and desire says, I want to feel what they feel. So this is the difference. If you ask yourself, if I had what they have, what would I feel? And then you find the key of what envy is trying to teach you. And you might say, let's say it's about, let's say you're lacking in finances and you're looking at somebody who has like a bunch of money, and you go through that envy feeling, and it whispers to you that you're not enough, that your job isn't good enough, or what did you do wrong. But if you break that down and you lean into the desire aspect of it, and you ask, what is desire trying to say, you might answer, well, what do I think I would feel if I had what they had? Well, if it was about finances, I think I would feel relief. I think I would feel safer with my budget. I think I would also feel a sense of freedom to purchase what I want or gift what I want to people, and that would bring me joy. So I think that I would feel relief, safety, security. I think I would feel freedom in spending what I want within reason, and that would make me happy. So that would be the soul's message. And what that tells me is that it was never about money. It was never about status. It was never about the things that they have. It's always about what we assume they feel because they have the things that they have. So it's always about the feeling that comes beneath the form, what you're looking at and what it means. And so understanding this really dissolves the whole poison that is connected to envy, and it teaches you what the medicine is for that. So let's break it down. And Almapura, we don't chase the story, we chase the energy. And here's how envy moves through the human system. So we're going to start with stage one, which is your comparison stage. And this is when you notice someone else's blessing, someone else's success. Maybe they're beautiful, maybe they have a loving partner, maybe their life feels so easy. And so your energy takes that in and measures it, but it measures it next to your worth. So it's your worth next to their worth. And that's where that comparison starts to happen at. Stage two is constriction. And this is awful because you can feel it a lot of times in your throat where your throat will tighten or you'll cough a little bit. This is the stage where your gratitude goes away, it fades. Joy becomes completely muffled. You can't even reach it. You're not happy with what you have anymore. And you absolutely lose the ability to genuinely and authentically speak blessings or congratulations over another person. Stage three is where we go into self diminishing. And this is where the energy kind of presses down. It makes you feel a little smaller. It makes you feel unseen. It makes you qualify yourself as less. And this is the illusion where separation is forming. This is where it starts to say, oh, you're better, I'm worse. And this is where we start to believe that we're separate from this person's blessing and we're separate from this person. Stage four is emotional displacement, and this is where you will start to feel frustrated. You may start to feel very sad, and you'll feel a distance from the experience that you're participating in simply because you're perceiving this separation and envy is starting to take over, your human person. So you disconnect from all of your own accomplishments and you forget that you're divinely designed and you're perfect just the way that you are. Stage five is realization. And this is where you pause and you ask, like, what am I truly longing for? And this is where you begin to see the feeling underneath the envy, underneath the desire. You start to wonder about that feeling because that's what we're always lacking. We're never lacking the thing, we're lacking what we assume they feel. That's key. Stage six is reclamation, and this is where you start to try to breathe gratitude back into your body. You name your worth, you review your accomplishments, you say them out loud so that you yourself can hear with your physical ears everything that you have done and succeeded at in your life. And so then that's where you turn comparison into compassion, into inspiration. That's important to do because we want to make sure that we can reclaim our own sense of gratitude and our own sense of self and our own self-worth. So it's good to take time in this stage so that you can remember how perfect you are. Stage seven is transmutation, and this is where the energy moves from the throat to the heart and then settles in the solar plexus. And this is where it transforms into personal power and personal identity. So when envy starts, it kind of catches you in the throat and then it challenges you in the solar plexus. But when you recognize that desire is what lives underneath that envy and that we're seeking is that emotional freedom or the feelings that we think that we want to feel because we think that's what they feel because they have this stuff or they have this experience. And so that's how we know that that's what we're looking for. Um, it's really important in the stage seven transmutation is what we recognize is that instead of being locked into our throat and our solar plexus, the energy passes through the heart chakra where our inner child feels resonance with we are enough and we know what task is at hand and we can totally figure it out. So this is an important stage to kind of come back to yourself and to transform the envy into personal power because you're going to look underneath what desire is trying to teach you. It's really important that to break the cycle is that we don't shame envy. We try to listen to it instead of shame it. We don't feel bad or guilty with ourselves. We have to meet it more with curiosity and love, but we have to meet it like, what are you trying to show me? What is it that my soul is searching for when I see what they have? And it's important to not like, don't beat yourself up over this. Everybody experiences this archetype at one point or another. And our goal is to really figure out how we can manage the archetype of envy so that it doesn't overwhelm us or bash us down to the ground. So that's what's really important. So I think it's important that we recognize the first signs of envy. And that's where those comparison thoughts come. That's where that tightness in the throat comes. We might even feel guilty, like I said, or resentful. That internal dialogue starts like, how come I can't have that? Or why not me? Or how come my life isn't so easy? And how come I always have to struggle? So we might start to hear those inner questions start to arise. Ask the key questions, especially if I had what they have, what would I feel? And let's let that answer rise up. Would I feel relief? Would I feel safe? Would I feel loved? Would I feel joy, freedom, peace? Then we know what we're actually searching for and what we're actually desiring. And so now our job is to seek or to nurture that feeling directly, not by obtaining the external thing, but by working with what we have in our life to create those feelings. And once we do that, you will find it will blow your mind, but you'll find that you're no longer jealous or envious of what another person is experiencing in their journey. Also, try to ground the energy of envy. You can do that by returning to gratitude. Maybe write down all the things that you have been blessed with and all of the successes and achievements that you've accomplished, and like review them, read them, really, really take a look at that. Speak blessings and life over your current experience in life or the current season that you're in. Um, Kind of put your hand on your heart and breathe into your heart, because that's going to tell you like, I love me and I am worthy and I am good and I am enough. And so it's important to remind yourself of that during the time where you're challenged with the archetype of envy. And don't forget to reclaim your voice of blessing, right? The fastest way to dissolve envy is to bless what you envy and to wish them abundance. When you celebrate another person's light, you amplify your own. What you put out to the world is what you get back, And that's really true. So when you bless their abundance, you're basically declaring to the universe that you are in that vibration, and the universe will respond by showing you that it has enough for you too. So every miracle that belongs to another is also a promise that such grace and such mercy and such abundance exists in the world for you too. And I really believe that that is his message to us, because in his presence, comparison melts into connection. And you realize that every blessing that you witness is, it's kind of like God is reminding you what's possible for your journey and in your own divine timing. And that's the good news of the whole thing. So, as we close today, I really want you to remember that envy is not your enemy. It's really your inner compass that points you back to gratitude, to self worth, and to alignment, and to balance, and to peace. And when you understand the archetype of envy, you really learn how to listen beneath the desire. You begin to hear the quiet voice that your inner self uses, and it's your soul telling you that you are already enough, that you are already blessed, and that what you see in the world around you that you desire is simply a mirror of what God is waking up inside of you. And I hope that you rise above everything superficial and that you dig a little deeper when envy touches you, because um, just remember that you are so worthy. Without comparison, you don't have to compare yourself. I hope that you transform every shadow of energy into divine clarity. Um, yeah, may you know that what you envy in others is a reflection of the beauty that already lives inside of you. And thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me today and discuss the archetype of envy. I hope that it helps as you move forward in your journey. And thank you so much for visiting Almapura Awakenings. Stay blessed.